2 by 2, 7 rows deep, and rolling up to the start-finish line. Looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside.
As they can. Saber making an amazing dive into turn one.
And electroshocks off. Eggful gets the move.
But MNU trying to take a move.
Big contact from Mikepaws. 5 different punches.
Big incident with Snowdog, our leader.
As we head into Tamarel, it's a big crash. It's a big crash between the two title contenders.
Welcome back once again. We are live for round 3 of the 8th running of the Simufur GT3 series. We are here at a rainy Red Bull Ring. Now, Red Bull Ring itself, quite an interesting track, but put in the rain, and I think we're up for some, let's just, how do I say it? Very cinematic racing and interesting drama along the way. I am Suzuka, and commenting alongside me is Kady. What do you think of the race day today?
Ready for some absolute cinema for sure around here, the Red Bull Ring, formerly the A1 Ring, formerly the Österreich Ring. Circuit has a lot of history to it, and you know, it's one of those ones where it's a very simple layout. We only got 10 corners around here. There's really only 9, but they count that little weird kink on the run up to turn 3 as a turn. So there's really not very many corners to try to get exactly right on your quali laps, on your race pace, but each one I think presents its own sort of unique challenges here. Lots of elevation change, lots of weird, tricky uphill braking zones. They're going to get even more tricky now that we're here in the wet. Those wipers going not just limited to the cars that keep their wipers on all the time. Everybody's going to have to be using them today.
Garage 42.
yeah, exactly. Everybody's doing the Garage 42 today. So yeah, we're here in practice. We've got about 5 minutes and change left on the clock, and our drivers are getting their last couple of laps in before we get going on qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can't say anything else, but Red Bull Ring is such an amazing track. You know, a lot of great racing has happened here previously in Simufur, and I'm just glad to be here once again. I mean, this is a track that almost always delivers. I mean, previous season, it was probably one of the most chaotic races I've ever witnessed. I hope the rain doesn't make it as much chaotic, but yes, the Red Bull Ring is certainly a track that will bring up a lot of drama, a lot of action, and that's why I love it.
Yeah, I think I was actually in that one last year with that big red flag at the beginning of the race. I thought that we had all made it through okay, and then we got into Sector 2 and everything kind of immediately fell apart. But yeah, this is, I'm actually really pleased by this particular version of the Red Bull Ring that we are using today. It's not the most exactly up-to-date version of this track. There are some little gravel traps, especially on the inside of, or on the outside, excuse me, of the last 2 corners, just to try to prevent people from running wide. Track limits, definitely something that we're going to be taking a healthy look at today, because it's the Red Bull Ring, and drivers are going to be looking to push those track limits as far as they possibly can. Again, there aren't very many corners to get right, so you want to maximize every single one, and that leads to people usually getting it a little bit out of bounds. Drivers might be a little bit more careful on the curbs today, considering the rain is probably making them quite slippery. But here we go. We already have some battling here up into turn 3. on our practice laps here, and it looks like the Lamborghini is just going to edge this one out, maybe on the run down to hill to turn 4. I don't think the Honda's going to be able to pull back out in front, but definitely it's going to be tests of bravery today for our drivers. How much do you want to push those track limits? How much do you want to push those braking zones? Are you feeling like you have the car underneath you to be able to do that? Or are you just sort of, getting tricked by, your dry braking lines, for example, and excuse me, catching yourself out. That's what you don't want to do, especially when you're trying to nail your qualifying lap, for which you only should have 10 minutes, I believe, today. I think that's how we're doing qualifying. It's going to be 10 minutes for each set of classes.
I kind of want to say, I think the rain might discourage some of the drivers here from exceeding those track limits, because, I mean, the rain just makes curbs wet, and when those curbs get wet, they get really slippery, so you really don't want to be dipping your tires into them, especially if you want to get a fast time. But for some, I think they would still go for the limits, but it's very risky, It's a matter of getting the grip right, getting the throttle input perfectly, as we see Playable Kagekiyo, one of our title contenders here in the silver class, making up a run here in the Red Bull Ring. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting come qualifying. It will be more interesting in the race. Who would, with the rain being, I would say, the cars driving across, that'll be making the track much drier. So well, it's not perfectly dry, but it's only just less wet. But
It's getting drier, I think.
I bet that will help in the long run. But so far, it's soaking wet.
Yeah, and it's probably going to continue to be for basically most of this qualifying session. I think pros should probably have the best of it, considering that the other two classes get to run ahead of them and clear off some of the water a little bit. But it's definitely, the pace of the rain that we're seeing here. It's a pretty steady downpour that we're seeing here in Austria today. So that's going to definitely make it so that if there aren't a lot of cars on track at any given time, clearing all of that water, it's probably going to lead to some buildup on track, and that's going to definitely throw everybody for a loop. Another thing that you want to watch out for here, that you've probably seen at least a couple of times around some of these corners, is those sausages. You definitely want to avoid those, especially in the rain. Even in dry weather running, those are quite dangerous to run even just a couple of wheels over. It can really, really upset your car, especially with ACC suspension physics. You're going to be sort of pogoing around out there for a while, trying to get the car back under control. And in a lot of these corners where you're sort of trying to carry as much speed as possible, that can lose you a lot of time. So definitely for these drivers, I have to imagine probably going to be just really doing their best to take things easy on their first lap, just to get that banker in, and then they're going to start pushing the limits.
I do want to apologize for the current graphics. That is currently Daniel Taverner. I believe that is our overall championship leader, representing Racing Team Echo in that Lamborghini, putting up a quick lap. But at the moment, I think they're P10. So you would expect them to make a quick lap, but at the moment, it looks like they're struggling right now. As in my timing boards, it's actually Loïc Carril, the number 935 GTR Taegang racing driver, that is actually setting the fastest lap. Now, keep in mind, they were originally a national class driver, but with the classifications being awarded to some of our drivers who have come into the grid, now Loïc Carril is fighting in the silver class. So it will be interesting to see what fight they bring to the guys in front, like Blade Wolf and Auraz.
Yeah, we've seen some really, really good results from them just in these first couple of races so far. So definitely, I think the bump up to silver is for sure deserved. That's typically the highest that we will promote somebody mid-season. I have to imagine that the majority of folks that are coming in the national class are getting promoted up to AM usually when we find their pace. But if you put in a lot of really good performances like Lohi has been, that will definitely sort of reflect very well on your performance, and we will adjust that accordingly. So fighting for points now definitely puts a lot more pressure on to be able to perform well, to be able to represent as the newest member of TIG Gang Racing here, just trying to do their best to bring a good result home today, especially in a wet weather session like this. There can be a lot of opportunities to make up places if you just keep the car under control. Stay within your limits, drive probably 95% of the limit. Try not to go over that too much, and just run your own race. It can usually turn into a lot of positions for you by the end.
At the moment, it's the AM class drivers and the national class drivers coming out for qualifying. As we look at one of them, Fluffy Whitepoint, I believe that's the leader of Whitepoint Racing in that Ferrari, in a queue of cars that are on their outlap. Now, you want to get your tires as warm as possible, especially because it's like really cold, really wet. You really want the grip, because that grip will define your lap time. And yeah, you just got to push the limits on these cars. But at the moment, let's just take it slow and steady. You have to take a banker lap and get faster from there. That is my personal strategy in qualifying, but we'll see how the AM drivers tackle this tricky conditions.
Yeah, exactly. These treaded wet tires are designed to be able to warm up pretty quickly on your out lap. You want to get them to around usually 30 psi is the happy zone for these tires. When you come out of the pits, they're usually somewhere around 24, 25, but they heat up very quickly thanks to that tread on them. So you'll sort of get into those green temperatures pretty quickly, but you still definitely you won't have all of the grip underneath you on your first lap, or at least for the first little bit of your first lap, as Fluffy's coming around to start this lap here. Definitely want to watch for cars coming out of the pit lane there up the main straight. That might affect your lap time. I think that pretty much everybody is out on track right now, so they're just trying to jockey for space a little bit, trying to get into a good position to make a nice clean lap. This Porsche is actually quite close to the back of Wolf and Ravenloft here, as I don't know if one of them is going to just slow down to try to let them go. They're still quite close together. I think that Porsche is going to want to try to make a gap here between now and the next lap to just make sure that they can get the best time that they can.
Yeah, I don't think that's the optimal way to do qualifying, especially in the wet, because yeah, it's not only do you have to deal with dirty air, but you have to deal with the spray. You can't see a thing when you're so close behind the car, so you have to be really good at mastering the whole racing line if you dare to be that close. But I believe the Porsche behind here, that's one of the Whitepoint cars. I think that's how they're doing it, and they look fine doing that.
Yeah, we have a couple of new teams. I haven't been paying super close attention to the last couple of broadcasts. I'm not sure how Team Echo and Whitepoint have been doing this season, but I mean, obviously, Daniel up there at the top of the timing boards representing their team. That's definitely a strong statement to make at this point in the championship. That's going to be a purple lap from looks like Wolf and Ravenloft now taking that 35.9. These times are probably going to be a lot farther apart than we're usually used to in the dry weather running. Usually those times are way down the leaderboard within a couple of tenths of each other even. So it's just going to be a matter of who can make the least mistakes at this point, and that'll probably cause the times to get a little bit farther apart from each other as Wolfen pulls off the racing line here to let a couple of cars go on their hot laps.
Yeah. So it's pole position for ignore the graphics. We were having a little bit of a technical problem, but at the moment it is Nutagen of Whitepoint Racing in the number 621 Porsche, currently on provisional pole position, with Sarami trailing close behind, also in a Porsche, 6 tenths down. third place we have Manuel Benavides, who is 1 second down. Never mind, scratch that, because Luis Gordon, the number 847 Racing Team Echo car, just stole P3 off of Benavides. So the grid is starting to put on their times, but I bet they will get quicker and quicker once those tires warm up and the drivers get used to a lap around a slippery Red Bull Ring.
I don't have that much time left necessarily. There's, I mean, definitely at least a time for a few more laps, but you do only have 10 minutes around here, so you definitely want to be careful and make sure that you're, getting the clean ones in when you can. I feel like pole today could be up to anybody at this point. We're seeing a lot of trading blows up there at the top of the timing sheets. So yeah, we've got 12 cars on track right now. I feel like any one of them could potentially take this. Rain has a way of keeping cars really close together and also getting cars up to positions where they necessarily shouldn't be in. So we could see a lot of mix-up in the classes potentially today. Maybe some silvers fighting against gold for some positions. It all depends on how comfortable everybody's feeling in the wet. How much they're feeling themselves around here, pretty much, and just who can handle the mixed conditions the best. As we got 4 minutes left on this, so it should be time for maybe 3 laps if you're coming around right now. So a little bit of time, but you definitely want to start picking up the pace now if you haven't already.
Now I would say that the rain filters out the best drivers from the worst, but I don't want to say that. I kind of want to say, well, that's partly true. I do want to say that even the best can have a bad day. So the rain is just it's there to, make it anyone's game. Honestly, you can be very skilled, but sometimes you can have that. You just can't get that grip right, and that could lose you. So for those that are careful, it could also be their game. So consistency is something you really want to look out for in the rain, as Fluffy White Point skids wide onto turn 1. That is not the optimal line around there, and that will be an invalid lap time for them.
I would say the NASCAR line, but I don't think NASCAR's ever been here. So Mango back up at the top of the timing sheets by 0.6 of a second, actually. It's still pretty close for those sort of 2nd to 5th positions. They're within a couple of tenths of each other. We definitely have a couple of folks who are looking quite close together in these conditions. We have the groups sort of separating out now into their respective sort of pace zones a little bit. It's looking like Mango is up on their time as well, so they should be looking to improve here in the twilight hours of their particular qualifying session. But that's a really, really strong lap for sort of the top of the AM leaderboard here. It's quite clear of pretty much anybody else here, so could be quite an attacking race here from Mango potentially. Just depends on whether they're able to make up any positions at the start, or if certainly if any incidents happen in front of them, they could be on for some really good positions here. And that's a 33-2 now as well, and it looks like maybe more improvement coming even from Mango here. It's looking like a really strong qualifying for them.
I mean, if I recall, Mango is one of our rookies here. They are in the national class, but they have quite a gap compared to their teammate Nutagen in that number 621 White Point Porsche, and I believe Nutagen is confirmed AM class. So at the moment, it looks like it's Nutagen for the AM class pole, but it's gonna be really close because we also have another newcomer who is also showing up here in this race. I believe that's the number 989 Aston Martin of Rio. Now this was very unexpected, seeing these 2 rookies coming up compared to the AM leaders even, and it's a surprise for sure, but a welcome one.
Yeah. No, I like it quite a bit. Our AM class, I think, has always been just super, super competitive, and that definitely continues to be true in this one. I feel like a lot of people tend to, obviously you want to look towards the top. You want to see who's who's winning the race, who's fighting for those overall positions. But AM is always a really fun time to pay attention to. It's a lot of drivers with a ton of potential, and ooh, that's a Porsche around into the wall there. That'll be the end of their particular qualifying session here at the Red Bull Ring. But they're actually continuing around. I'm not sure if they're gonna be able to get around, or if the front end of that Porsche is carrying. That should have been at least a pretty decent amount of damage, I think, hitting the wall at that particular speed. And there you can see the silver starting to filter out of the pit lane now. Anybody who has crossed the line within the last few seconds is on a lap, which is Wolfen here, who looks to still be on this hot lap, wants to make it around this Lamborghini as fast as they can. Hopefully Lamborghini will make it easy for them. Looks like they're bailing out of it now, so, or maybe not. I wasn't sure if I saw brake lights on that Mustang or not. They might still be continuing around here.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the chat right now. We got quite a lot of White Point Racing fans out here. I guess White Point really showing up in terms of both the grid and the fan base as well, as we see Wolf and Ravenloft. I believe they're still continuing on their lap. I think they crossed the line after the 0 mark, so I mean before the 0 mark, so this is still a valid lap, but I think they should be careful because they have a grid of silvers coming out on their out lap as well.
I mean, they're still on an improvement. They're up maybe, what, 3.5 tenths, which would not, I don't think, at this point be good enough to improve their position, but it would be an improvement in time. So it's worth keeping around, because there are definitely more cars still to qualify. And if anybody does a worse lap than that, that could mean positions for the race start further down the road. But our AMs are coming around now, or our silvers are coming around now, excuse me. They're starting their laps, and that is indeed a faster lap, but not an improved position for Wolfen. By the end of that lap, they will start 13th, and Mango will take our AM pole, followed by Rio in P2, and Luis Gordon there in the 847 BMW in P3, rounding out our podium to start the race.
I do want to correct you. That is Mango and Rio both in the national class. So
so it's
Luis
Luis
a
on
national
pole
class
then.
one too. Yes, it's Luis Gordon taking the AM class pole position, but all eyes are now in the silver class fight, because this is the one to watch, to be honest. You know, Blade Wolf and Auras, they have been really exciting racers to be watching, and this silver title fight is sure to be a cinema. Even more now with Mirski, Loic Corral being promoted to the silver class. Now, they missed 2 races since they were a national driver back then, but I wonder how they will perform now that they're a silver driver. Will they have, can they make ground with the limited 4 rounds they have, or will it still be a fight between Auras and Blade Wolf? My money's a little more on Blade Wolf, to be honest, but Auras still kind of in the fight, to be honest, and is trying his best.
It would have to be a hell of a few races for Lohi here to actually be able to start competing up at the top of the silver leaderboard at this point, considering how far back they are. And it's not entirely up to your performance either when it comes to drivers' championships. Anybody who was watching Formula 1 last year definitely is very familiar with that. It comes down to luck a lot of the time, just what your competitors are doing, whether they're able to not just finish and win races, but to just be able to get to the finish line and be scoring, you know, really consistent points. That's been the name of the game here in Simufur for a long time, and it hasn't stopped being true, especially here in silver, which also tends to be one of our most competitive classes. It's sort of that nice in between where I think you find a lot of folks who they're not necessarily, you know, topping the pace sheets all the time, but like the level of racecraft that's on display in silver is just like phenomenal. We've seen some amazing fights on track in the last couple of races, and I'm definitely looking forward to this one, you know, being in the wet. And you know, sometimes that can tend to have a little bit of a chilling effect on a lot of battling, a lot of the risk assessment, it tends to lead to people, maybe letting drivers through or not fighting as hard for the positions that they're in. But I don't really care. I want to see some fighting.
I'm not sure if I've said this one before, but I will repeat this over and over. The silver class never fails to deliver, and at the moment, it's Loic Corral beating out everyone for pole position with Arads down to 2/10 now. Loic Corral already showing a very strong performance. Now, may I add, the Nissan GTR is very good at the wet from what I've heard, so this could be helping him, but I still see Loic Corral as a very competent racer. They've got what it takes to challenge the top in the silver class.
Well, that's a very nice thing for you to say about a TGR driver. I appreciate that. All right, we've got 4.5 minutes on our AM times at this point. Lohi is at the top of the timing sheets, just a few hundredths clear of Mango at this point, actually, and Ara is pulling up behind as well in P3 overall at the moment. With that national driver splitting them, that might create some interesting dynamics in the race as well. But Swingley is right behind there as well with another national between them. So it's going to be a bit of a complex grid at the start of this one. We'll see how much the nationals are willing to fight, or if they're just willing to let those guys through and let them battle between their own class. It's always something that you kind of have to think about as a driver. Whether whether or not the car behind you or in front of you has a different colored plate than you, but just what it's looking like in terms of pace, whether it would be worth it for you to go around or just to stick behind and not fight it too much. You don't want to create any interclass incidents or anything like that, but it can sometimes hurt your race to be behind somebody of another class, especially if you run into an incident earlier on. So let's see who's on an improvement right now. Actually, not too many folks are. They're just sort of floating around their best, a few hundreds here, a few hundreds there, but looks like Sadcat actually is on a pretty significant improvement. That's going to be maybe 3 and a change tenths for them. That would put them ahead of Swingley on track at the moment, but we'll see if they're able to respond.
Yeah, at the moment, Sadcat on a fly right now. Currently, they are 6th place overall, but for a second, they're 4th place in the silver class, so they could take a few positions, but I think they lost a significant amount of time down Sector 2. They're just teetering between gaining and losing as they come across the two. I believe that's turn 6 to 8 now, as they power down into the 2 final corners now. These corners are very notorious. I mean, if you've watched Formula 1, if you've watched any form of racing, turns 9 and 10, they are a pain in the rear end to get right, because if you go too wide, that's your lap time gone, because you broke the track limits, and it's just, I mean, as a racer, I've experienced that before, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah, hopefully not too many pains in the rear end, but that's definitely something that can happen if you get the braking wrong into those, especially in the wet weather. You can find yourself spinning at pretty high speeds into the barriers off to the right there. And speaking of Formula 1, I believe it was maybe a couple of years ago where they added that little I want to call them like those little Qatar style like gravel strips that are sort of on the outside of that corner. The reason that corner gets so abused in terms of track limits is because of all of that asphalt runoff there. It's really, really tempting to be able to just carry the speed right around there, because you don't really get punished by going off on a surface that is still okay for racing, as Lohi lets somebody lets Lohi around in that Nissan GTR. But yeah, it's just that extra little gravel there just to slow you down, just to be a deterrent. And it's tended to work pretty well, I feel like, in real life. But even though this was one of the last tracks added to ACC, so it's a pretty recent scan of this track, it doesn't have that particular feature for this incarnation. So we'll just have to monitor track limits the old-fashioned way.
Yes, at the moment, Lloyd Corral sliding down into turn 10. That was quite a fashionable way to be coming off that corner, but that is an improvement for Lloyd Corral as they set a 1:33.0, almost breaking to the 1 minute 32s at the moment, and they are on pole position for the silver class by a huge margin. The next silver driver, Aras Volpez, is only 3/10 down, so they're showing quite a strong showing here in the Red Bull Ring in that Nissan GTR.
RS put in that first lap and just really hasn't been able to improve on it. Sometimes your first one is your best. That tends to happen, especially in the rain, if it's just you know, you hit that nice sweet spot of grip and then you never get it back. That's kind of what it seems like RS is, or what's happening to RS here, as it looks like they might be backing out of whatever lap that they're on at the moment. We have pros and golds coming out onto the track right now, so this is going to be sort of the last hurrah for anybody. Swingley was on a pretty significant improvement, but looks to have lost some time through the last sector that they were in. It's only a few hundredths now. They were challenging to take that P2 in class away from RS at the end of this one. We'll see how this lap finishes up. They're coming around towards the final couple of turns right now in that beautiful black Porsche there, and just pushing those track limits as much as they can. That looked like it was pretty tidy. Not too much sliding around there in the last couple of ones, but that might have been a little bit wide. I think it's still going to be valid, but it's not going to be an improvement. That's almost an identical lap time to the one that they put in previously, so they are going to keep that P3 position. Still a great place to start.
I do want to say they were gaining quite a lot on Sector 1. It's just, they just lost a lot of time at Sectors 2 and 3, and that's just really unfortunate. But anyways, here we go. We have the pros and gold drivers coming out as we look at Parker Olsen. Now let's get on a hot lap with him as he navigates the Red Bull Ring in that number 74 Taegang Racing McLaren. It's flat out. You have to be careful on the throttle, especially here in the rainy conditions. But Red Bull Ring, a circuit known for a lot of straight line sections. As you hard brake into turn 1, clip the curve, try not to break the track limits out of this first corner. Turn 2 coming up really shortly. It's a non-existent kink, but in the rain it might be a little existent depending on your car as you brake hard into turn 3. It's a really tight hairpin. I feel like that will be an action zone in the future as we get into the race. But put the power down once again. Again, another straight. Just Parker Olsen just trying to get the most out of the V6 turbocharged engine of that McLaren as they brake once again into turn 4. It's really tight, but you want to get as wide as you can. Don't try not to slip on those curbings as you head into turns 5. That's slow right, slow left, and see dab on the brakes into turn 6. Try not to go as wide as you can because that will be track limits. Turn 7, another dab on the brakes, and just carefully coast the car as you put down the throttle into turn 8. Again, try not to break the track limits here. Track limits will be the big factor of this race as you brake hard into turn 9. Here we go, the two most notorious corners of this circuit, turns 9 and 10. It's a make it or break it section because you can either go wide and break track limits or just go under and just not get the best out of the circuit. So you're teetering in between a fine line of pushing beyond the limits and just trying to be safe.
Yeah, exactly. Decidedly tepid lap there from Parker Olsen. That's going to be almost 2 seconds off the pace, but definitely there was a lot of places you could see on that lap where they weren't even getting close, really, to the very edges of the track, especially on the run into turn 1. You can absolutely see some room left there. We're going back to a replay of Parker Olsen here. They might have had some trouble heading into turn 4 here. Take a look at this braking. This looks okay. That was Fossey there, I believe, in that car, but it's looking tidy still for Parker Olsen. Still not pushing exactly to the limits here, but that's down to comfort.
I do want to say, at the moment, no one is beating that lap time of Loic Corral. Loic Corral still remaining in the pole position, and the pros and golds we have here, they're mixing between the silver drivers and the AM drivers. But again, these lap times will come faster as these drivers get their tires warm. They get their brakes dialed in. They get their driving style dialed in to handle this wet conditions. As Sauce Dragon now beats all the Golden Pro drivers and puts himself into 4th place. But at the moment, it's gonna be a slow crawl to see if anyone can beat that lap time of Loic Corral. That is just a astonishing lap here in the wet as Nicholas Zahn comes closer. That is now P3 in that Cabal Sim Sports Lexus. They're only 3/10 down, but again, that time is going to be really hard to beat. Loic Corral set a banger of a lap time.
Yeah, they're within 3/10 now, but we've seen around this track. It's hard to find a few tenths sometimes, especially if you're not getting exactly the grippy conditions that you want. It's looking like Callum Mooney is on a good enough lap right now. They set a purple sector 3 last time, and it's looking like this is almost certainly going to be a purple sector 1 to start off this lap. They're up 4/10 now, which would be good enough for pole position by at least a tenth or two at this point, but that's still, that still brings Lohi quite close to the back of the very leaders of this race. The names that we're seeing here, Mooney, Zahn, Taberner, Vossi as well down there in P4 overall, or P6 overall, I should say. But definitely a lot of really big names that we've seen in at the top of our sheets here at Simufur in the last couple of championships that we've done, and it looks like Callum Mooney has actually lost quite a bit of time through Sector 2. This lap is no longer going to be good enough unless they just nail these last 2 sectors, and it's looking like they might. So that's quite far outside track limits there. I don't know if that's going to earn them a slap on the wrist there, but it definitely was enough to slow them down significantly. It's still going to be an improvement, but not enough. They're still in P2 now.
I mean, my goodness. Are we going to have a silver driver on pole? I swear to God. But
love to see
at the moment, yeah, at the moment, these times, they're not showing much promise, but I mean, you still got to hold on to hope, So maybe one of these guys will come out of nowhere, but the more these drivers make their laps, the more I think that it will be impossible for anyone to beat Loic Corral, because that is a monster of a lap time, especially in the wet. So I don't, at the moment, for now, I don't see anyone at their current pace good enough to beat Loic Corral's lap time. Maybe Mooney if they can find some time in sectors 2 and 3, but aside from that, it's just gonna be a really tough ask for anyone in the gold or pro class to get pole position.
Yeah, not a lot of time left. Hey, remember what I said about the times being closer to, or being farther apart in the wet, because P1 through P10 are separated by 6/10 of a second right now. That is that's definitely a little bit of a moment there. With fastest sector 1 there for Sosh, so they're on a really good lap right now. It's looking like it's definitely, like you said, there's a lot of folks that could come in from back in the field to take these laps, but Sosh has been the closest so far. It's less than a tenth away, but still a tenth away. Just needs to find that last tenth somewhere around this track. You can get to a point at the Red Bull Ring where you don't see where the time is anymore, and I feel like we are approaching that point, as when you're nailing every corner pretty much to the best of what you think you can do. I mean, what else is left to find out there? It's looking more and more like it's going to be definitely a good enough for pole lap, as Sasha's a tenth and a half up right now, so this actually might be good enough. We'll see what happens in these last couple of corners. We've seen it happen before, and we might see it happen again, where a good lap gets thrown away in turns 9 and 10. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened here. very aggressive braking into turn 9 there, all the way out, skirting with the track
Illegal.
limits, but just keeping it within the limits there. I don't know how it keeps happening, but they just lost 2/10 again. That's not good enough.
Yeah, that's
This
just
is their
really
last lap.
unfortunate
You have to get it on this one.
Yeah, that is just really unfortunate for Sauce Dragon. Now it's make or break for their final lap in this qualifying session if they want to beat Loic Corral, another driver who was trying to beat the number 935 Taegang Nissan GTR, Kalen Mooney, out there into turns 9 and 10, but unfortunately they are losing time in that section, and that is not going to be enough. That is only 82 thousandths down on Loic Corral, but they still got one more lap to go. But at the moment, Sauce Dragon and Mooney are the ones to look at, because they are the ones that could have a chance to outthrone Loic Corral for pole position as Sauce Dragon heads into sector 2, braking hard into turns 6 to 7, as it's going to be really tricky around sector 3, because that's where he lost the time. He has to find, I would say, yeah, he has to find at least a 10th there if he wants pole position, but it's at the moment it's just really hard. They are struggling. They are currently down, and it's getting more impossible. It's only 2 corners to go. Sauce Dragon really has to ace these, or else that is game, set, match, as Daniel Taverner comes out of nowhere. That is 17 thousandths down on Loic Corral, but Sauce Dragon, not enough. That is not going to help them, as they have to settle for P3. But Kalen Mooney out there in that Racing Team Echo BMW, could they dethrone Sauce Dragon? He only has 2 corners to go. Turns 9 and 10. It's a make or break for Mooney here, and it's going to be really close. But I think Mooney's close. But Zon just outthrown. But Mooney coming up with a lap time. But turn 10, they just lost it all. Like I said, you can win some and lose some in these final corners, and it looks like it is Loic Corral on pole position in the silver class, and overall in that number 935 Taegang Racing GTR. Daniel Taverner in the gold class pole position, with Sauce Dragon in P3, Nicholas Zahn stealing P4 overall, and that is Mooney having to settle for P5.
I have never been prouder of TGR than in this moment. We did it, folks.
Same.
It's just
Same.
it's
I mean,
fantastic up there. The next silver is down in P8. That's ours down there. Oh gosh, what a lap there from Loic Corral. I wasn't sure if we were going to see anything better, and Daniel obviously coming the closest there, but still 17 thousandths of a second off. This is going to be a really, really close fight from P1 to P4, and now the nerves start to set in if you're Lohi in this moment, because now you are staring down the barrel of an hour of racing in these conditions where you've had to scrap and fight and slide around on those treaded wet tires just to try to get up to where you are now. And now you have a whole host of really, really hungry pro and gold drivers behind you who are looking to take that position from you, who think that you're going to make it easy for them because you're in a different class than them. But if you're Lohi in this moment, I think you got to fight for that overall win. I don't think they're going to be thinking about doing anything else.
My goodness, I do want to point out Daniel Taverner's lap time was only 17 thousandths down on Loic Corral. That's how close the margins are. Actually, the top 5 are separated by less than a 10th of a second. That is quite the field spread we got here. That is just insane amount. That's just an insane gap to comprehend.
Yeah, that feels like dry times almost. Like, I mean, obviously it's a lot slower than dry times, but just in terms of the distribution, that's something that we would probably expect from, if the track was totally dry and folks were able to sort of push as much as they wanted to, pretty much. But yeah, we're ready to settle in here for an hour of racing. As we have said in the previous editions of this series, it's an hour of racing. We have a 40-minute or a 20-minute, excuse me, pit stop window, which means that sometime between 40 minutes and 20 minutes remaining in the race, you have to come in and change your tires. The time for a pit stop that we've been seeing around here, it's a pretty long pit lane in the Red Bull Ring, and it's going to be about 65 seconds that you're going to lose by taking that pit stop. So we'll see what everybody's thinking about with the strategy. If this rain lets up at all sometime in the next half an hour or something, if the track starts getting drier, if anybody wants to start thinking about dries, God forbid, but we'll see what happens when we get there, I suppose. But I think we're just a couple moments away from our track walk now.
That's the grid, I think, in front right now as we head into our grid walk. Now the star of our show here today, Mirski Loic taking pole position in that silver class Nissan GTR, starting alongside championship leader Daniel Tavener in the Racing Team Echo Lamborghini, who is only 17 thousandths down on the GTR. P3, we have Sauce Dragon in that number 73 confuzzled Mustang. I really love that livery. I'm going to say it once, I said it again. And P4, we have Nicholas Zahn. I'm in Cabal Sim Sports. I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern here. It's a lot of big front engine GT cars, as we have Kellen Mooney in Racing Team Echo starting in P5. And P6, we have Vossi Tigris of Tig Gang Racing. And P7, we have Racing Mango. Correct that is a White Point racing car. In P8, we have Araz Volpez in the number 406 Lamborghini. P9, we have Garage 42. That is Jesper Swingley in the number 279. And rounding up our top 10 is Christian Clippert in the Tig Gang Racing Mercedes. P11, we have Sadcat in the number 13 Lamborghini. And starting alongside P12, another rookie on this grid, Nishihara Ryo in that number 989 Aston Martin. P13, we have Blade Wolf Kagekiyo, our championship leader here in the number 142 Lycan Racing Silver Class Aston Martin, starting alongside Yap Jin Tech in the Leggy 2 Fast number 26 Porsche, and starting alongside Parker Olsen in the number 74 Tig Gang Racing McLaren, starting alongside Luis Gordon in the number 847 Racing Team Echo BMW. In P17, we have Coda Wolf in the number 78 Nissan GTR. P18, we have Proto Nutogen in the number 621 Nice White Point Racing Porsche. P19, we have George Sarami in the number 212 Garage 42 Porsche. And rounding off the top 20, we have JPEG Fox in that number 12 Aston Martin. P21, we have Cooper Otter in the number 97 BMW, starting alongside P22's Fluffy White Point of White Point Racing in the number 39 Ferrari. P23 is Matthews I apologize to all the Polish people out there. Holy Sale in the number 76 BMW. P24, we have Manuel Benavides in the Tokyo Ghost Racing's number 5 McLaren. P25, we have that's Adam Norlim starting in pit lane in the number 574 Honda. And that is P26. That leaves P25 actually, Wolfen Ravenoff in the number 529 Blue Shark E-Racing Mustang, starting alongside another Mustang. That is Sierra Thomas of Racing Team Echo down on the grid, unfortunately for a silver driver, and that is Snow Dog rounding off our grid overall.
Yeah, I know Sierra's usually towards the top of our silver times, so maybe they just weren't able to get a lap in. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, but I will go over under on you here, Suzuka, on how many cars are going to get involved in whatever lap 1 incident this is going to end up being, because those tires are going to be pretty cold, and we're just going to want to make sure that we keep things nice and clean through the first lap, but I don't have high hopes.
Again, I mean, the last 2 races we've had were ridden with red flags. You know, the first race did not go well, so I hope third time's a charm. But looking at the weather, looking at this track, the odds are against my favor. I mean, it's the Red Bull Ring, it's the wet, it's going to be Carmageddon on paper. I mean, I put my faith in these drivers, but I don't know. It's going to be very interesting as Loïc Corral packs up the drivers into a 2-wide formation as we get ready to start here. Now Daniel
Starting on the
Tabner,
outside of from pole position. I didn't know that the Red Bull Ring was like that, but I'll let you take it away for the race start.
Yeah, that is Loïc Corral starting up on pole position alongside the championship leader, Daniel Taverner, as we wait for the green light. It could be any second now. Any second. Green light. And we are underway here in the Red Bull Ring. Daniel Taverner looks to have a good start compared to Loïc Corral as he heads into turn 1. It's Taverner for the lead. Loïc Corral maintaining second, and Sauce Dragon right behind in P3. So far, so good for our drivers here on the grid. At the moment, there's not much Carmageddon, thankfully, but we have to pray because turn 3 is coming, and that's going to be a major drama point. Can Loïc Corral go down the inside? Thinks better of it, stays behind Taverner, and it looks like everyone's made it so far so good. There's not much drama going on, and there's no way. There's no way. Have we made it scotch-free? I do knock on wood still as Loïc Corral slaps down the inside. Thinks better of it once again as Sauce Dragon tries to get an opportunity on the number 935 Nissan GTR. But at the moment, it's Loïc Corral holding bravely for second place.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that that replay there of the race start, because it looked like Loïc was caught napping a little bit off the line. Daniel was ahead by basically basically down into turn 1 at that point. So I don't know if we're gonna get the best look at it here with our so I mean, you could just see there it definitely looked like something about that car up there, that Lamborghini was able to get off the line a lot quicker than the Nissan was, and that's going to turn into P2 for Lohi, but still holding on to it. Definitely was looking at a couple of moves here, just trying to break as late as they could into turns 3 and 4, but definitely Taverner putting up really solid defense around the outside for both of those, and they're going to hold on to the lead here.
This is the first race in this season that we do not have a red flag. Mark this day as history, folks. This has been long awaited for, and it's finally happened. We're going racing without red flag interruptions, as we see Loïc Corral. I believe he is chasing down Taverner. The power of that GTR, undeniable, but Taverner goes down the inside to defend, but Loïc Corral biding his time, but Sauce Dragon under the nose, under the rear end of that GTR, trying to pick a position, going down the inside is going to be very risky, but so far so good. Loïc Corral is attacking and defending with ease at the moment as Taverner tries to run away, but Loïc Corral is going to be a really tough driver to run away from, as it seems.
If you were going to run away, Daniel, that's a little bit of a wide moment there for Daniel onto the gravel even, which is going to be a little bit wet and just going to drag you down all that much more. It looked like they had a chance to start to create a gap there, and that's just not going to be it. And now Vossi's looking to get into the picture here, as well as Nicholas Zahn right behind. So we almost have a 5-car battle for the lead here, which is turning into a 2-car battle for the lead, followed by a 3-car battle for the last spot of this podium here. Sasha's having to go offline to try to defend against that one. Maybe didn't have to leave so much space, but that's going to give an opening to Vossi coming up the hill here into turn 3. Quite an aggressive move there, just trying to get to the inside as much as they could. And it looks like Sasha's going to just about cover that off. That's going to lose Vossi a little bit of time and maybe bring Nicholas Zahn side by side, and in fact ahead of Vossi as they head into the braking zone, but they're on the outside, so we'll see how that move would have ended up. Who is able to scrabble around for the grip and be able to get ahead of the other? It looked like it was a tie because they're both side by side already as we are getting into, and we're also side by side, it looks like, for the lead almost. That's a really aggressive late braking there from Vossi, trying to stick it around, get the power down as much as they could. It looked like Zahn was able to get the move done, but just when they thought they were going to, Vossi's going to take the outside, which is going to turn into the inside for this little stretch of track here, these turns 5 and 6, and it looks like things have settled down a little bit up in front, but the battle is still raging for sure right behind them.
That one loss of traction coming off of turn 1, I believe, was enough to render Vossi a sitting duck to Nicholas Zahn. Defend as he might, that was some really brave defensive efforts and battling with Nicholas Zahn, but unfortunately, Nicholas Zahn looks to have an upper hand on Vossi Tigris. But at the moment, I do wanna let everyone know Loic Corral is still fighting, and they are I think they're faster than Taberner. But as we look at the replay here, we have Nicholas Zahn and Vossi Tigris side by side. It's gonna be really close, but Nicholas Zahn on the outside. But that is Vossi. Oh, he just locked his brakes. He just dived in and just, unfortunately, that was Zahn going for the up and under. So kudos to them for that brilliant move. As Loic Corral is still fighting with Taverner. That Nissan GTR is very persistent right now on the rear end of that Lamborghini. The GTR's power undeniable once again, but again, Taverner on the inside. Can Loic Corral go around the outside? It's going to be very close. Loic Corral wrapping around the outside. Taverner on the inside, but Loic Corral has the traction on the outside. Turn it into the inside line, and that will be Loic Corral for the lead into turn 6 of this race.
Back into it. That's fantastic work there. That was just like 3 laps in a row, pretty much. Of it's looking like
and that's Taverner wide.
A little bit wide there, and it might turn into 3rd place for them as Sasha's going to come up and have a crack at Lohi now. It's almost a complete reversal of our starting order here as we get into the next few laps of this one. It's looking a little bit rough there from Sash for those last 2 corners. It might give Daniel Taverner another chance coming back up into here, but Taverner is going to be kicking himself for just getting a little bit offline there. If you get that line just a little bit wrong through that high-speed section, it's supposed to be flat out, but if you get offline, then that definitely affects things, as they're looking pretty close to the back of the Mustang up in front up here into turn 3. I don't think it's going to be close enough for a move, as Nicholas Zahn is getting back into the picture as well. If you're gonna run away, Lohi, now is the time to do it.
My goodness, that was a phenomenal move from Loic Corral. They may be a silver driver, but my goodness, they are showing it up against these gold class drivers, and showing it up he is, because they are building a gap right now compared to Sauce Dragon and Taverner, who are currently in a duel of their own, as the number 935 T-Gang GTR just runs away in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, no, it's looking like it's going to be a pretty strong start here for Lohi. And now the hard part is done. Now they can just control the pace and just continue to stretch out that gap if they can. But these top 5 really have been looking really, really similar on pace so far. But fascinatingly, they're faster in different parts of the racetrack. The thing that enabled that move into turn 4 there was the speed that the Nissan is able to carry through the first sector of this racetrack, which is mostly straight lines, as Daniel Taverner is maybe looking to just try to get Sash a little bit offline here. This is a pretty fast sweeper here, even in the wet. So if you can get somebody offline and get them to defend that inside just a little bit, that can definitely reduce their speed coming up the hill here. And that was all that Lohi was doing pretty much for the first few corners of this racetrack, just doing as much as they could to force Taverner offline. And that was what was keeping them in the fight and ultimately what opened up that move for them.
I mean, part of me thinks that the Lamborghini is not that good in straight line speed because at the moment, Taverner looks like a sitting duck compared to Nicholas On, who is closing in into turn 4, but not quite. Taverner has it close, but Taverner goes wide. That is going to be Nicholas On going down the inside. It's going to be a risky move, but I think Nicholas On gets past, but it's going to be risky as Taverner goes down the inside into turn 6. They're too wide coming into this sweeping left-hander. That is not good for both of them because at the moment, I think that is Vossi Tigris trying to find a gap, and that is on wide. That is Vossi finding an opportunity as they make another position. So Vossi just biding their time and waiting for the long run, and at the moment it's paying off because they're picking positions one by one.
Yeah, pure racecraft there from the TIG gang Porsche, just eating popcorn behind those two, fighting it out through 5 and 6, and just waiting for one of them to slow down enough to give them an opportunity. And that was exactly what happened, and they took it, and now they're staring down the barrel of potentially a P3, a podium in this race. That would be a fantastic performance here to get two TIG gang cars on pole. But yeah, definitely Taverner and the Lamborghini Evo 2 not looking very comfortable in the in the wet conditions here. I think that car tends to be you tend to get a lot of rotation out of it, and that might be turning into a double-edged sword here for Taverner as they're trying to avoid the car over rotating and you know, getting you know, at worst into the wall, at best, you know, just trying to recover whatever positions that you can, as it looks like the front engine Mustang there is able to just pull out a gap here is Sash, and is still trying to chase down Lohi for that P1 position, but they're losing a couple of tenths per lap on it, so Lohi's still able to extend that gap and put down some really good lap times.
Speaking of, we have another T-Gang racer here. That is Parker Olsen on the rear end of Blade Wolf Kagekiyo trying to get past. This is a gold driver versus a silver driver. So I think Olsen might want to be really patient, but judging by that slide, they are driving really aggressively right now. Now, that's the last thing you want in this wet conditions, but because Blade Wolf is going to take advantage of that and just run away. I think Blade Wolf is going through their defensive drive once again, but if I was Blade Wolf, I would think of the long run, you know, because they are a little bit down on the silver class pack. It doesn't help that Loic Corral has a huge margin, but if he could at least pick the scraps on one of the silver drivers, it could mean extra points for him in the championship, as we see Norlim going really wide into turn 9 in that Honda. But getting back in track once more, that's not something you really want to do. And also, I do want to add, that is Nishiria Rio unfortunately dropping down into P22 after a brilliant qualifying. At the moment, it's just dropping down, and it looks like they're just slowly trying to recover and make up for lost time.
Yeah, you see the positions gained and lost on your screen now, so we have a couple of big winners from this one. Definitely the White Point car in P15 up 7 positions from where they started. Sierra as well up 7 positions, so doing as much as they can to try to work through this AM pack and get back up into an actual position fight. A couple of big losers. I mean, not a huge loser, but just based on the vibes of the race that we've seen from Dana Taverner, it's definitely, the momentum is not going their way. Nicholas Son dropping a position, Callum Mooney dropping a position, and Mango dropping 3 from where they started. They're down in 11th from 8th. So that's what folks are looking like right now as they are continuing to get their pace dialed in. As it, that's a really late breaking move. I am not entirely sure how that BMW got stopped. There are some cars in this class that just, for whatever reason, you can just break them really late in the wet. It might be a combination of, you know, the engine braking, of, you know, having a lot of the weight on the front end of that car and just being able to use the engine to slow yourself down. That might be part of what's contributing to that. But some of these cars are almost able to use their dry braking points here. Oh! That's a car spinning off into the barrier at the start-finish straight. I didn't quite see who that was, but that looked like a race-ending incident.
Apologies if we cut that overtake, but we really want to look at what happened to, I believe that is Adam Norlim right there as they head off into turn 10, and I think it's just too much throttle into the wall. He goes, Norlim spinning out of control, and just that's not a position you want to be on a racetrack.
Yeah, thankfully the other folks behind were able to have enough of a gap to get around without plowing into the side of him for sure. That's definitely something that could have happened potentially if they were any closer. Parker Olsen looks like they've gotten in front of Blade Wolf now. We can go back to see maybe when that happened, as this looks like a battle between Taverner and Vossi. This will be for P3 of the podium, and Vossi just doing a nice little over-under here, making it side by side. They have the outside here into turn 5. Is that going to turn into anything? Well, it's going to turn into contact is what it's going to turn into. Just a little bit of door banging, nothing too egregious about that for sure. Definitely something that you might expect in the wet, considering that these cars are a little bit less under control than they would be in dry conditions. But just a little bit of door banging shouldn't have affected either of those cars too much.
To me, it kind of looked like Taverner slid a bit wide into turn 6 as we see Benavides dive down the inside of Coda Wolf here and make another position. That number 5, McLaren, making up for, I believe, for lost ground, because that looks like they got some damage from, I don't know if it was an early incident or sometime in the opening lap, but Manuel Benavides making up for some lost ground for sure.
Yeah, and doing a decent job of it, at least so far. I think they are fairly close to, actually they're 2 positions ahead of where they started, so have already made that up and then some a little bit. We cut now to Yapshin Tech, the number 26 Porsche 992, looking to make up 11th on Sadket here, who is, of course, in the silver class. Sadket has fallen quite a bit off the back of Mango up in P10, and it looks like this might be good enough for the move, but this is a weird place to try to overtake here into 9 and 10. You really have to be brave on the brakes and really committed if you want to make this work, and it looks like both of them are still continuing through okay. It looks like Sadket having to slow up a little bit just to make sure that they had room for the both of them, and that is going to turn into a position for Yapshin Tech, who is looking to get back up to the next driver in their class, which would be Christian Clippard, all the way up in P7. That would be the next pass for position for them. So definitely a ways to go still.
Yeah, as we look back into Taverner versus Tigris, here we go. This battle has been spicing up for a while now, but Tigris struggling to find a way past Taverner. But at the moment, I think this looks like this could be the moment, as Tigris is really close on the rear end of that Lamborghini, going around the outside. Taverner hugging around the inside. Can Tigris go around the outside once more? Doesn't look quite like it, because Taverner has defended that inside line quite nicely, I must say. But Tigris not backing down, not giving up. I think Tigris trying to find the gap, trying to find a moment where Taverner cracks under his pressure, and that will be game set match for Tigris. That would be the podium for the number 15, the number 15 Tig-Gang Racing Porsche.
It would be, but the gap is getting out a little bit farther now, so Taverner sort of reeling them out a little bit. That will definitely put a bit of a pause in this lap. But yeah, there's really not much you can do if somebody, if you're not already at least have a front axle ahead. If you're on the outside of turn 4 there's not really a whole lot you can do if somebody just defends that inside line. It's a really sort of weirdly profiled corner where it opens up at the end of it, so it really benefits whoever is just able to get to the apex first and get down on that power. This doesn't look like it's going to be close enough up into turn 3 here, but both of them are pulling together up to the back of Sosh Dragon as well. So Taverner done a lot of looking in their mirrors in this race. That looked like it was really good acceleration from the Porsche out of turn 3 there, as would be expected from this high traction vehicle.
They're going to be able to take the outside
now. I don't think that's going to be late enough braking there, though, for it to happen.
Taverner wide.
But
that's
a little bit outside,
wide.
A little bit outside
going down
there.
The inside.
And I don't think... This still isn't going to be enough, I don't think, but we'll see what happens.
Taverner trying to defend the inside. Tigris trying to find a gap, and that is Tigris slipping. That will be pay into Taverner's favor. But at the moment, I do want to say that I think that Sauce Dragon's toe is helping Taverner just a little bit because the Lamborghini suffering on straight line speed. Now, I know the Porsche also not that good top straight line speed, but they look like they have the acceleration compared to the Lamborghini, so it's going to be really close. But Sauce Dragon has now built up a little bit of a gap. I wonder if this could pay into Tigris's hands, but unfortunately, with all the slipping and sliding, Tigris has seen himself way a little bit down on Taverner compared to what they would like to be in. So they're gonna have to play catch up for the next few laps once again.
Yeah, just gonna have to put in those laps and see if you can get back to the front. Alternatively, we do have the pit window coming up here in just a few seconds' time, so we can start talking about pit strategy a little bit here as Jesper Swingley gets pretty close to the back of the Lamborghini there of RS Volpez. These two fighting it out for, well, I would say it was the lead of silver. We normally would expect it to be, but Lohi's all the way up there in P1, taking that away from them. So this is for P2 in class. The 279 Porsche getting pretty close here. But I have to imagine if you're any of these cars that are in these really intense fights or have been for the last several laps now, definitely in the wet weather, I don't imagine, and also with the colder track temperatures that the rain is going to create, I have to imagine that the tires are probably going to hang on quite a lot longer than they normally would, especially because, and there we go, the pit window's open now, especially because these treaded tires, they'll hold on for quite a while. They'll turn into a slicked intermediate eventually, where you'll wear the tread off, and then they'll sort of behave a little bit more like a slick tire as you get further down on the tire wear. But big wiggle there from turn 10, giving me something else to talk about here other than pit strategy. But yeah, that should give an opportunity for Jesper here, potentially up the hill, if they're able to get this right, and it looks like they do. They're quite close together as they are both heading up the hill together, and also pretty close to the back of Christian Clippert there, up there in P7, or at least pulling together towards them. It looks like this isn't going to be quite enough of an overlap. In fact, no overlap at all. Jesper's going to bide their time now.
That is the last thing you want if you're defending with your life. RS Volpez almost having a major moment. Thankfully, unlike Noralim, they saved it from hitting the wall and they come out unscathed for now. But Volpez has to watch their mirrors because Jesper Swingley is just trying to find an opportunity to pounce. But so the number 406 Lamborghini has to be as wide as it can be, especially in the dying moments of their first stints, because they all eventually have to come for their pit stops. It could be the overcut or the undercut. And there is Noralim coming inside the pits, and that is a heavily damaged Honda NSX. Now, I believe they're also going to be coming in for repairs. That is guaranteed, but that's just going to be a hefty amount of time in the pits for the number 574. Meanwhile, I think paying into the overcut undercut strategy, I do want to think that at the moment, I think Taverner might want to go for the undercut, but it's a little bit too close to call. Because at the moment, they're quite a ways ahead of Tigris. If they want to get past Sauce Dragon, it has to be in the pits. And that's either through an undercut or an overcut. So at the moment, Taverner is stalking the number 73 confuzzled Mustang in what move they will make. And they will try to combat that overcut or undercut.
Right, they're in a really, really weird position right now when it comes to like the pit strategy, because they want to be able to get close enough to Sosh there at the front as Yapjin Tech looks to be making up, or not making up, but actually defending their position from Sadkit, who's able to just throw it up the inside there. A little bit of a door bang on the apex there. I think that was just about within the realm of respectful racing. And Sadket reclaims that P11 position from Yapjin Tech here, who is backsliding just a little bit. But going back to Taverner for a moment, definitely when you're sort sort of within that pit window of a couple of other cars, both ones that you're defending from and ones that you're trying to attack, as they are trying to attack Sauce Dragon right now. Nobody looks to be particularly slowing down, so nobody's coming in quite yet. This would be pretty early to do it. That looks like Vossi spinning into the pit lane, into the pit entry line at the last corner there. I think they might have been trying to come into the pits and maybe gotten a little bit of contact from behind as they were trying to slow down enough to get into there. I don't think Zahn was expecting them to come in, maybe? Or maybe it was just spinning on their own.
Yeah, that was turn 9, and yeah, the
well, at least the pit lane's right there, I suppose.
Yeah, the tarmac claims its victim, but yeah, Vossi's down into turn into the pit lane, but at the moment, Tabiner looking much closer to Sauce Dragon. Can they get a move done? But it looks like Sauce Dragon has got a better exit and is running away, in fact, from Tabiner. So at the moment, it's Sauce Dragon defending quite nicely from Tabiner, but how long can you hold up that defense as Tabiner goes for an aggressive move? And that is Tabiner wide into the kitty litter. That will cost them a lot of time, and that will bring Nicholas Zahn into the picture as they try to close in on the Racing Team Echo Lamborghini.
I don't think it's going to be enough at this point, though. It's enough to definitely bring them back well within the slipstream, of course, but to get them close enough where they're going to start exerting a little bit of pressure on Daniel, who's been soaking up pressure this entire race pretty much. And just when it seems like things are about to calm down for them, it's just, a little mistake here, a faster lap from one of their rivals there, and that's really just enough for them to get thrown off their game again. And
that's Sauce Dragon slipping!
Sauce Dragon is really, really wide here, and it looks like that's going to be definitely more than enough of an overspeed for Daniel to claim that P2 position that they've been looking for basically this entire race. I think it's just about time for at least one of these cars to pit, but we'll see who wants to come in first.
Yeah, that was too much power coming off of turn 10. That sent Sauce Dragon sideways. Thankfully not hitting the wall as far as I'm aware, but that is now Sauce sitting duck, defending hard onto the inside and trying to defend from Nicholas Zahn, who tries to wrap around the outside, but not quite. At the moment, Sauce Dragon defending quite aggressively, but that's guaranteed P3 at the moment for now, because Nicholas Zahn is breathing right at their neck and trying to find the gap, trying to find a moment where Sauce Dragon cracks and trying to squeeze on by. But at the moment, Sauce Dragon has recomposed themselves quite nicely.
Yeah, very nicely. Should be able to hold on to this position at least for the near future, or maybe not. I may have spoken too soon. That was a really, really good sector there from Sauce, and they're still quite close to the back of the Lamborghini heading into the last couple of corners of this one, and now there's this lapped traffic that they're having to deal with as well. That's the Honda NSX in front of them, who we just saw in the pit lane, one of the first to come in. You can see on the left side of the timing tower, you can see that that orange 1 next to all of the drivers' numbers, as the NSX is going to let this little group by, not wanting to get caught up in that at all. That would be a pretty bad idea for everybody involved if that were to happen. But that 1 next to everybody's number there, that means that they have yet to serve their mandatory pit stop. Once they come in and do that and they leave the pit lane, that light will turn green. So we already see a couple of green lights further on down the... Oh, that looks like Taverner going down.
Yeah,
and
that was Sauce
going around the outside
outside
of turn 3, it looks like, on this one, and they're heading down the hill and they're back into P2. And now I think Taverner is going to have to change their line yet again, as one position might potentially turn into 2. How late can Nicholas Zahn break into turn 4? Turns out not very late, but they're just trying to bide their time as well here. I have to think that one of these drivers eventually is going to decide that all of this fighting is not in their best interest and that they should come in and start setting some consistent laps on a new tire. But so far, they are fighting really hard for their positions. And I guess thinking that even if I'm getting slowed down, my rival is also getting slowed down with me. So, even though it's costing me a lot of time, keep doing this. I think Taverner is thinking that this is a quite defensive race from them. It definitely has been so far. They've been on the back foot. If they can stay out here for longer and slow down these cars so that they could have a chance of finishing ahead of them, I think that's what they're going to be looking to do for the strategy today.
Yeah, it looks like Sauce Dragon is running away, so Taverner is going to have to settle with racing against Nicholas Zahn there. And at the moment, that Lamborghini looks like a sitting duck because the Mustang's gone fast. Now the Lexus is up on their rear end. Now the Lexus has greater top speed compared to the Lamborghini, so it is 100% sure that Taverner is going to be a sitting duck compared to Nicholas Zahn. But Taverner trying to make that Lamborghini as wide as it can. And it looks like Zahn is just biding their time, trying to find the right moment, trying to stay within the slipstream, because that could be a moment where Taverner slips up, and that would be a gap for Nicholas Zahn. Nicholas Zahn flashing and trying to distract Taverner as we head into turn 4. And Taverner, has he gone wide? I don't think so. Taverner's still taking quite the optimal line, and Zahn is just struggling to make Taverner crack under this pressure right now. But they're trying their best. They're trying to get as close as they can, but that's just solid defense from this Lamborghini.
Yeah, I mean, they've had the pace when it's counted, for sure. You know, there's been a couple of mistakes that we've seen, but once they're able to sort of gather it up and make sure that it doesn't end up costing them any positions, that's where that's where you want to be able to have the time, and that's what we've been seeing, at least so far. Sadkit here are fighting still with Yapshin Tech for what would probably turn into P11 after all of this, depending on where Vossi ends up, of course, after that little spin that they took in the pit lane. That definitely would have lost them at least a little bit of time, doing that pit stop, but not as much as you would maybe expect as Sadkit decides to bail out and go into the pit lane themselves here. Yeah, if you're gonna spin anywhere, might as well do it right in the place where you can get your tires, and the place where you're gonna be losing time anyway. You're gonna be losing 62 seconds of it. I think when I was looking at the pit stop times for Vossi there, it looked like they were able to come out in about 64 seconds. So if that's the case, then that spin might have not really affected their race too much, considering that they only would have lost 2 seconds from it. And that's 2 seconds, especially with the way that these top 3 have been fighting so far, the ones that Vossi was closest to by the time that they pitted. There's a good chance that they'll be back in the picture again by the end of the race, but still has a ways to go.
I'm looking at the timing score right now. It looks like Nicholas Zahn got past Taverner at some point, so Taverner has to settle for P3 for now. But again, we're halfway past. We're at this point. I think you really want to come in for tires, but I think Taverner thinks it's much better to stay out and suffer on these tires for as long as he can to get the fresh tread, to get the fresher rubber for those final at least 20 minutes. Because once the timer past 20 minutes, that you cannot make a pit stop inside the pit window anymore. You will get penalized for not serving a pit stop under the pit window. But Taverner has to think fast right now because they are losing positions one by one. As we saw earlier, Taverner lost time to Nicholas Zahn, so it's do or die for Taverner for a championship leader right here.
If I could put myself in the cockpit of the 83 Lamborghini right now, I feel like I've been as annoying as I can at this point, which it seems like that's been Daniel's strength this race has been being annoying, which is sometimes the most that you can hope for if you're driving on your back foot and being really defensive. As long as you can keep those cars behind you and make them really work for it, that's as much as you can hope for. And at this point, you've done as much as you can. You've done all of the battling that you needed to do. These cars are going to start going faster than you now. We've seen the pace, the way that the pace has been for them so far. I think you got to call it at this point. I think you got to come in sort of the same way that Loey is coming in, our virtual race leader, who is making their pit stop right now. Did something happen? Because it's on the timing board. looks like no, never mind. That was just a little bit of weirdness going on with the timing tower. I thought that somehow Vossi and Christian Clifford had gotten ahead of Lohi at some point, which would have been absolutely disastrous for their race. But it's going to be really interesting to see where they come out. They had about, I think, a 5-second gap before the pit window started to the next car down. So I think they should be able to comfortably come back out into the lead by the time everybody comes in for their stops. But it comes down to that pace again, so we'll see what happens.
I do want to add, I think we saw Tamer going into the pit lane, but deciding last minute they want out because Nicholas Zahn was diving into the pit lane, and now Taberner, I think they're going for the overcut. It's going to be really bold. It's going to be really risky. He has to make these lap times work, or else it will be over for Taberner, and that'll be positions down, and that Lamborghini does not look easy to handle. It's going to be really difficult for the number 83 if they want to commit with this overcut strategy. But at the moment, Loic Corral, I think, will come out as our leader. Yes, that is Loic Corral coming out of pit lane as our leader still. So not much is lost. But can Taberner beat out Sauce Dragon? Or Nicholas Zahn even? Or even Loic Corral? It's going to be very risky. But Taberner going out for another lap. They're really trying to make the overcut work. They're trying to go as long as they can, as the pit window allows.
I mean, these cars are going pretty slow because they're the Sasha and Callan here. They are going pretty slow because they're coming out on cold tires, and they obviously need to warm those up. I'm sure that's probably playing a little bit into the calculus here for Daniel's race, but I almost can't help but feel like it's a bit of a strategic misstep here, given that those times they're not that much faster by staying out, and at this point I feel like you really want to make sure that you get on that fresh rubber as soon as you can. Those cars were already ahead of you by the time that they were pitting. At this point, I know you're trying to make a tire gap, but with 25 minutes or so left in this race, I don't know how much a tire gap is going to end up mattering, especially the way that we've seen the degradation happen. I mean, there's been a lot of sliding around. There's been a lot of contending with the weather here, but still, I can't help but feel like maybe, especially with these mistakes starting to creep in as well, can't help but feel like if this is going to make those gaps even bigger by the time that they come out here.
I do want to add, you can see a lot of slip angle on Taberner, so those tires are definitely going and going, so I think it would be wise to come in. But Taberner, once again, they think the fresh rubber will, they're going for one more lap. I think they're going for the freshest rubber possible, but I don't think it's worth it because that was slip and slide down turn 10. That is not going to be good for their lap time. Oh my goodness, it's going to be, it's just suffering at the moment. Those tires are just begging for mercy at this point. I think at this point, Taverner might as well pit in, but yes, we have 3 minutes until the pit window closes, so it's either 1 or 2 laps that Taverner will be making before they come in for their pit stop.
Yeah, well, I mean, leave it to the very end at this point, because you've committed to this strategy for sure. I mean, might as well get as much benefit out of it as you possibly can. I can't help but wonder if maybe they were thinking that all of these cars in front were going to start fighting as well. But you can take a look at the gaps now. Remember, we said that folks were losing about 62 to 65 seconds on their lap times when they were coming in. So given the times that we're seeing right now, it looks like Sash is going to get ahead. Callum Mooney is definitely going to get ahead. Nicholas Zahn is going to get ahead. And it might even be Ara's getting ahead as well. But I think Taverner might be in the pits now. I can't see whether that is happening or not. My timing board is going crazy. So, yep, that looks like it. So that is a pit stop for Daniel Taverner, the very last one of our grid to make it around. They technically maybe could have gone around one more time without getting a disqualification, but you definitely don't want to mess with that. Not the best pit entry there either. We'll see how many cars find their way around Daniel here, where they end up.
I did want to say that. I think Taverner put the pit limiter on too early, and that will. I mean, of course, you want to slow down right before the line, not well above it, because that's going to be a stop-go penalty. I think that's no. Yeah, it will be a dry. It's either a drive-through or a stop-go penalty if you exceed the pit lane speed. But at the moment, Lloyd Corral has got a huge lead, and I think they're gonna get past Taverner. Taverner is going to be a sitting duck once they come out of this pit lane, because I think the other drivers are going to be coming in lining in for a free position on Daniel Taverner.
Yeah, you know, I thought we were going to do a lot more talking about Lohi this race, but they kind of just disappeared up the road somehow, which is just fantastic. They've managed to stretch out that gap quite a bit. Obviously, they were helped a lot by all of these cars fighting each other. That's Nicholas Zahn around the outside. That's Ares as well going through as Daniel finally gets out of the pit lane here, and I think they're probably going to lose one more position as well. There's Vossi going back through, who's recovered up to P6 after that
No, wait,
spin.
that's Chris as well.
And Chris might have a look here as well. The TGR Mercedes getting around the outside has the front axle well ahead by the time they get to the apex, just letting off that brake a little bit to make sure that they maintain their side-by-side advantage here. But now they're going to be looking at the outside for turn 4. This could be a pretty decent opportunity here for a position, but it depends on how late they're able to brake and whether they're able to carry the speed around there. It looks like Daniel is just going to keep a nose ahead here as they go pretty much line astern. The Mercedes almost pushing the Lamborghini along towards turn 5 as that Lamborghini manages to stay ahead here. And I think that might just be enough. No, it's not, because that was just the toe out onto the gravel, and that might give the Mercedes one more shot here on this lap as they go wide themselves going through turns 7 and 8 there. I think that that's just going to give Daniel the breathing room that they need to finally warm up these tires and get back into some kind of groove. Pitted up in P4 and ended up down in P7. So we'll see how much recovery they're able to make up here in these last 20 minutes.
I mean, with the fresh tires, I believe that Taverner sees a little bit of an advantage, so they'll try to make up as much pace as possible. But at the moment, I mean, plan A is to, that is not plan A, that is for sure. But plan A is to warm up the tires and not slip on the curbs and go wide and compromise yourself to become a sitting duck with I believe the Clifford that was chasing behind. But yes, that is Nicholas Zahn getting past the back marker, I guess. Yeah. No wait, that's Callum Mooney. Callum Mooney's in the action out of nowhere. That's Zahn versus Mooney, with Mooney looking into the inside, but doesn't look quite like it. And it's going to be a really tough fight between Mooney and Zahn. Mooney coming into the picture out of nowhere. They are P4. They are ahead of their teammate, Daniel Taverner. They just quietly carried on with their race, and look where they are. They're P4 and potentially fighting for a podium if they can get close to Nicholas Zahn once more.
Yeah, that pit cycle treating Mooney really, really nicely for this one. So definitely there are more positions up on offer here. I don't know if it's going to be enough for P2, because it's looking like Sasha's been able to extend that gap a pretty decent amount at this point. They're still less than a second away from each other, are Mooney and Zahn at this point. But definitely for P2, it's looking like Sasha's going to be a lock for that, as long as they're able to just keep it on the road here. And of course, don't forget about Vossi as well, still trying to fight through. It's going to be Vossi against Ares to sort of start off here with their next little bit of this race. The last little bit of Vossi's race, they're going to have to really go on the attack here if they want to get back to where they were. But here's Ares, who's going to try their best to defend here, as we're going to take you back to this fight once again between Yapshin Tech, and actually this is not Sadket, this is another Porsche that are going side by side into turn 9. I think I know how this one is going to end, but we'll see what happens.
Ooh.
Yep, so it's the two two of them coming together,
no!
and that was
Pirouette.
just enough for them to both break traction in the wet. I think that they might have had a better chance of getting away with that in the dry, but you can never tell with with ACC's contact physics. Sometimes they tend to get quite bouncy.
Yeah, that is true, but at the moment, Bossy Tigris looking behind Oris Volpes, trying to find a moment to pounce for P5, and that is Tigris going tight into the lines, trying to get as close as possible to the number 406 Lamborghini of Oras, and I believe they have power into turns 9 and 10, just biding their time, trying to find the exit into the main straight into turn 3, but that is Oras Volpes wide, and that is Tigris through. And that is P5 for Vossi. Now all Vossi has to do is now chase Kellen Mooney as well. Can they make it? Can they make 5 seconds down the road? That's the big question for here, because we have 16 minutes remaining on this race, and that'll be a huge gap to close down.
Yeah, it's either going to have to be a mistake or just more fighting between Kylan and Nicholas Zahn here for Vossi to get back into the picture. But the lap times have actually been really good from the number 15 Porsche here, at least so far. They're at the very least keeping pace with the two in front, and I think in some places, in some sectors of the racetrack, they look to be a little bit faster, so we'll see what that gap ends up looking like towards the end of this one. But I mean, those cars are tantalizingly close. They're just up the road, and if you can see your competitors, that's definitely a big motivator. Sometimes, you know, when you're just lapping on your own and there's nobody around you, you're just trying to, you know, set the best pace that you can. It could be hard to find the motivation to really like push as hard as you can. But when there's a car in front of you, at least for me, I tend to go faster when there's a car in front of me or behind me, for that matter. As Oras is now behind Vossi and maybe making up a little bit of time themselves, might be looking for this P5 again. But we'll see if they're able to throw a wrench into Vossi's plans at the end of this one.
At the moment, it looks like the grid is mellowing down and not much action going on, knock on wood, but I do want to see more action happening as we see Belivo Kagekiyo trailing behind Mango, and at the moment, all I'm seeing are trains that are... Oh, we got a replay. I wonder what's happened here. That is the 621 of Nutagen. That is a pirouette off of turn 3. That is not ideal.
That is so easy to do on that sausage as well. It's just that really long sausage curve right there that'll spin you around, especially in the rear engine Porsche. You could definitely have to be very careful on that low speed traction to make sure that you're doing the best that you can. And that part of the racetrack has basically had no cars driving over it the entire time that it's been raining. So huge puddles and a huge crash there from Fluffy Whitepoint, who is just going to have to drop back into P20 here. Still up 2 positions from where they started, but that's going to be a bit of a setback for them. A big overspeed for Nutagen behind in that Porsche that we just saw having that moment there on the outside of turn 3. But these two coming together and are going to be fighting it out for the top 20 at this point. We're going to take you back to what happened to Fluffy here. Presumably, looks like they're going around turns 5 and 6 right now. They're heading into turn 6 at this point, and they're not quite going to make it. It doesn't look like.
Oh, that is wide.
And yeah, just running over those little mini sausages there on the outside of what is that, 7 there, I believe, is that corner. So yeah, easy to do still. Again, right, we've seen a lot of cars mess that line up as they're going through in these wet conditions. Now Fluffy's on the back foot here as they're going to have to change their line and cut to the inside here. Shouldn't be too difficult of defense, at least at this point, but these two are just going to try to keep it clean here mostly, because it's not exactly like they're fighting for the absolute highest reaches of even the AM points at this point, but you know, they still got some room to fight here.
Hold on, I'm looking at my radar right now. That is a drive-through penalty for Daniel Taberner. I wonder if they broke the if they exceeded the amount of allowed track limit breaches, because 4 track limit breaches, and that is a drive-through penalty. That is the only way you can get that penalty, and it's just getting worse and worse for Taverner. I got a feel for him, man. It's brutal
out there. Yeah, for sure.
coming out of lap 1, you're in the lead of the race, but it's just all tumbling down, and it's just... I think this is a race that Tavener wants to forget, that's for sure.
Yeah, it seemed like it so far, but it looks like they're going to be able to at least, well, they were going to make that position, but now they are going to have to pull over to the right side of the racetrack, slow that one up, make sure that they don't tangle with anybody outside there. And that's going to be pretty much Taverner's race over at this point. They're not going to lose the full 60 seconds or whatever it ended up being, just because they have to just drive straight through. They don't have to stop or anything like that. But this is still going to drop them well out of the top 10 and give a chance to those folks in front to maybe make up some more positions as well. So that's going to be Swingley up into P8 now, still kind of, sort of, realistically maybe could push back up to RS, but it's going to be quite a tall order for them with 11 and a half minutes left in this one. So Tavener losing 2 positions here, it's going to look like. It's not going to be enough for Mango, I don't think, to get all the way around, but they are pretty close, so we'll see.
From the front row to P9, that is just really unfortunate for Tavener. This is a race they want to forget. I mean, thank goodness Simufur has a drop round where your worst result in one of the 6 rounds is counted off, and your 5 best rounds are counted into your points for the championship. So Tavener will come out of this race hoping that this will become their drop round, as I see Blade Wolf Kagehio, who has quietly been driving across and taking 4th in the silver class championship, but again, RS Volpez slowly closing in, but not. I don't think it's gonna be enough. But Blade Wolf just trying to get this race done. That's what matters at this point.
Yeah, and has a decent chance at the top 10 as well, so that will be definitely a feather in their cap if they're able to get all the way up there. It's about 1.2 seconds off the back of Mango here, as we get back to Fluffy, who has lost another position down into P20. That was the Porsche F getting around the Ferrari, so change of position there, and it looks like Lohi is coming up to the back of them as well, so some more traffic extended. That's Tavener into the wall. The cap on what has been an absolute disaster of a race for Daniel is down into 14th now at this point. It is, I have to applaud Daniel for still driving at this point. I'm sure they just kind of want to see the checkered flag at this point in the race, just counting down the laps at this point. And I think that's going to be another moment through turn 10.
Yep,
just way too
it.
much slip angle into that car, and actually didn't really hit the wall almost at all, or maybe at a very low speed, as they're now getting tangled up with their teammate here, who is in fact going to pull ahead of them, Luis Gordon, getting up past the AM, getting in front of the pro. You definitely don't want to see that.
Yeah, this is just hard to see, honestly. And, you know, it's just I feel like Friday the 13th kicked in really late and carried over onto a Sunday for Tavener, because that's just the worst stroke of luck I've ever seen. I mean, you're in the front row, and then all of a sudden, it's just plummeting down and down. I just hope it doesn't get worse for Tavener in that number 83 Lamborghini. And for now, I think, in their mind, I think they're just focused on getting this race done with. I mean, it's 8 minutes to go. Just have to make these laps. They're still P15. So, and while they're last in the gold standings, I believe they're still gonna score points regardless. So, they're just trying to make the best out of what is essentially a bad day.
Yeah, bad days and good days. We have Blade Wolf up into P10 now, who has actually taken that position from Parker Olsen, it looks like. So this battle heating up. This is the sort of the most action that we're seeing on track here in the last few minutes of this one. Parker getting a pretty good drive off of turn 3 there, just getting to the apex first, but isn't able to really do anything with it, given that Aston Martin is on the outside, and they don't want to make contact here in the last few minutes of this one. That's really late braking from Parker Olsen. They're going to go side by side between the two of them, and it looks like the Aston Martin is just going to be able to get on the power a lot sooner than that McLaren, and that is going to mean that they're going to continue side by side. They're not going to be able to get the move done, and Parker definitely wants that P10 back, and at least for now, it looks like they're going to get it very, very close to the gravel, and in fact, a little bit of a wiggle, and that's going to drop them back behind the Aston Martin, as Sadcat is getting involved in this as well. It's going to be a three-way fight for the last of the top 10 here in the last few minutes of this race. And there's Yamshin Tech as well, who we've been talking about for pretty much this entire race, just intermittently. We've seen them fighting for that position with Sadcat, and now both of them are staring at potentially a P10 here. And Blade Wolf has a lot of cars now queuing up for this position, and they're just going to have to spend the rest of this race just keeping to the inside as much as they can, and just trying to keep that pace up, because you know as soon as a mistake starts to creep in, that Parker is a driver who's going to want to take advantage.
I said this once and I'm going to say it again. Blade Wolf defends hard. It's going to be a really tough ask for Parker Olsen to try and get past Kagakyo in that number 142 Aston Martin, showing the flashers, disapproving as Sadcat goes wide into the curves. That's not going to pay into their favors as Parker Olsen tucks into the slipstream of that Aston Martin, but I don't think it's quite enough as the V8's power is, it looks like it's outpowering the V6 of the McLaren. So Olsen is just struggling to find the speed, struggling to find the gap, because Blade Wolf Kagakyo is driving for his life out there as we near 5 minutes remaining of this race.
Yeah, the mid-engine car's not having a good time out there today. It's definitely been a front-engine kind of day. Just that extra stability, that extra weight on the front of the car tends to give you as you are heading through these very slippery corners. This rain has been constant for this entire hour of racing that we've been experiencing here. It hasn't let up for a second, and that means that the level of water has been really constant throughout the entire race. So definitely the driver's very familiar with exactly the limits of this track and how much that they can push them at this point. And unfortunately for some, it's looking like they're pushing almost a little bit too hard. Parker, you can see just the amount of late braking that they're able to do there compared to what Blade Wolf is doing. And Blade Wolf knows that they don't have to push 100% right now. They can push about 90%. They have that gap a little bit, but they're going to have to start defending again pretty soon here as Parker continues to close in basically all of these braking zones. And that traction that the McLaren is getting is actually pretty impressive, or at least it has been so far. I don't think that this is going to be close enough for a move up here into turn 4, but eventually on one of these laps, I think they're going to be close enough, and then that'll probably be the last chance for Parker, as we only have maybe 2 or 3 laps left.
Yeah, the McLaren is good at the corners, but unfortunately that Aston has a lot of straight line speed power that pays into its favor, and it's making it really difficult for Olsen to try and get past Kagakyo, because I think that's Yapjin Tech and Sadcat closing in. As you recall, Sadcat went wide on the curb and lost a lot of time, but now Sadcat is once again on the slipstream of that number 74 Tiggang McLaren as they head into turns 9 and 10, and it looks like Kagakyo's running away with it, so Olsen now has to resort to defending from Sadcat.
Yeah, not the position that they wanted to be in. It was definitely, they were right on the back of that Aston Martin, and now they're looking to have a defensive race. That's what we've seen for these 3-car battles, especially when you're sandwiched in the middle of them. A really aggressive mindset can very quickly turn into a very defensive mindset, as all you're doing is just trying to maintain your position in this line here. But it's looking like it's going to be a fairly decent opportunity here for Sadcat to try to make up at least one more position if they're able to keep it on the road the way that they have been. And don't forget about Yapshin Tech back there either. Just has been creeping up to the back of these two, or these three, I should say. A few tenths here and a few tenths there, but it's starting to become enough to actually put them in the fight for real, especially if these two get close enough to actually start going wheel to wheel again.
Yeah, and at the moment it's just it's just a metronome. Like Olsen is just closing in, but losing out just repeatedly on Blade Wolf Kagekyo, and then I think the consistent drive is what making Kagekyo slowly form up this little truly train right now that is spanning from himself onto Yapshin Tech, I believe, as we get close to the end of the race. Kagekyo just taking things carefully, as Olsen is really a sitting duck, but so is Sadkit. Sadkit didn't get much traction off turn 10, and now that is Yapshin Tech through on Sadkit, and that's just one position down for him. That's just really unfortunate, but Yapshin Tech slowly climbing up into the top 10. Maybe they could get an overtake on Olsen, maybe they can get past Kagekyo, but it's going to be really tough as we have around, I don't know, 1 to 2 laps remaining on this race.
It should be 2, I think. I'm pretty sure that considering where Lohi is on the track right now, they're going to be able to get around one more time to make sure that this race goes an extra lap. And these cars, I don't believe, have been lapped yet, as Yapshin Tech is getting very, very close now to the back of Parker Olsen, who has been driving really, really consistently throughout this race. Definitely, there have been at least a few mistakes, but again, like we were seeing with Daniel with the defense that they were able to put up earlier in this race, is able to put the pace in when it counts. And definitely the best way to defend is to just go so fast that you don't have to defend in the first place. And that's kind of the strategy that we're seeing right now with Blade Wolf, at the very least, who has broken away from these two pretty convincingly. So they should be a lock for this P10 at this point, barring any pretty egregious mistakes. But there still could be a P11 here on offer for Yapshin Tech if they are able to do it, which would be a really, really great performance from them. Nicholas Zahn setting a fastest Sector 1 last lap. I'm kind of surprised that purple laps are still coming in at this point, but they're getting quite close to the back of Sosh now for this P2. We didn't think that we were going to see any fighting towards the top of towards the top at the end of this race, but it looks like we might get a little bit of fireworks here at the end.
Yeah, and at the moment, it's Sauce Dragon pulling out a healthy gap on Nicholas Zahn. It's going to be real. Chances are really slim for Nicholas Zahn. Sauce Dragon looks really well composed as Loic Corral crosses the final 2 corners and will wrap up this race, I believe. That is the number 935 Silver Class Taegang racing car of Mirsky Loic Corral, winning their first ever Simufur race overall and in the Silver Class. So big achievements for Loic Corral today. Big day in the Taegang office for sure.
Big day for the Silver Class. Love to see it. We have, 4 of them in the top 10. That's the majority of the class. So it's been a really, really good day for Silvers today, and it's been a great day for Lohi. Just an absolutely astonishing drive. Just had that little bit of pressure that they were soaking up from Daniel at the beginning of the race. They had to re-overtake to earn that position back. And then from there, it was just a matter of putting in consistent laps. That car looking really, really strong over in these wet conditions, and just ultimately pulling out a really, really convincing win. That was just a fantastic drive. It's one of the best drives that we've seen this season so far. Looks like it's going to be the drag race to the line here for P11, and it's going to be Parker Olsen who is going to take it from Yapshin Tech, who finishes P12 after a pretty astonishing drive from them as well.
Yeah, and definitely Daniel Tamer, a day they want to forget for sure. They're hoping that this will be their drop round and this will be the worst race that they'll have, because they are the championship leader. They want good race. If I were in their shoes, I would want good races, and this won't do it for me, to be honest. Unfortunately, Taberner in that position, they will have to keep their chin up for the next race and try to redeem themselves in order to get a hold of the championship.
Oh, good race. That was one of the
Yeah.
better ones that we've had around the Red Bull Ring that I can remember at the very least, and a really great wet race as well. I really appreciate the respect being shown on the track. We didn't have any major incidents. It was mostly people spinning on their own that it looked like. That was where we saw incidents happening. A couple of instances of some minor door banging really, but yeah, really clean race and just a really great representation of the kind of racing that we can have here on Simufur. I'm really happy with it.
That yeah, that was definitely a race to remember for Loic Corral. Starting on pole position, while they did lose out the lead on lap one, they regained it back with excellent racecraft, and they proven themselves as that they're a high caliber racing driver, and I wonder how they'll do in the upcoming rounds. And to close off this overall, I would like to say I would like to promote of course, I would like to promote the Simufur shop at shop.simufur.com. And not only that, but also the other racing action we have here. We have the Assetto Corsa What If One series. We have Formula 3000 cars racing around old Formula 1 tracks that could have made it or never made it into the calendar. And I guess that's it. If you want to get in on the action, if you want to join us, chat with us, watch races with us, etc., go to our Discord server at discord.gg/Simufur. I think that's enough for me, and yeah. Oh yeah. Hold on. I'm just reading the calendar right now, but I believe in two. Yeah. Hold on, how far is that? That's 2 weeks time. In 2 weeks time, we have another midweek break because of a convention. But once that on the week after next week, we'll be having a race once again at Donington Park. And I like Donington Park, so I'm obviously biased into saying that there will be some interesting racing going on there. Once again,
People
I'm
like
Suzuka.
Donington. I don't know if I have enough
Yeah.
experience with it to know one way or the other, but I know folks
know.
here like Donington, and it's going to be dry, mercifully dry for the next race. So we'll just get to see folks push flat out at one of the great facilities of the UK. But yeah, until that race on March 1st, we will see you next time here in the commentary booth. I'm Kady, that's Suzuka, and y'all have a wonderful rest of your night. Thanks for joining us.